Coming up in this edition of Media McKnight, my Reno Rules thrown into chaos after the production comes to a halt after a dispute with builders. Cutting through the spin, do TV broadcasters deserve a government handout? The radio ratings are out. I'll tell you who the winners are and who the losers are. And saying goodbye to an iconic TV production house. All that and plenty more in episode 9 of Media McKnight. Hello, I'm Rob McKnight. With over 30 years' experience in the media industry, this is Media McKnight. And we begin with an exclusive. Seven is facing a major headache with the production of Adrian Portelli's series My Reno Rules. Sources tell me filming has been pushed back due to issues with builders, likely affecting the planned completion of renovations and delivery of the show. It's been a bad week for the man who doesn't like to be known as Lambo Guy. Just last week, he faced court in Adelaide contesting charges of conducting unlawful lotteries. The show is set to air in 2026 with Dr. Chris Brown serving as host. The series will see 4 teams renovate 2 houses, with the finished properties given to 2 home viewers and the winning team receiving a massive cash prize. A spokesperson from Seven told Media McKnight, as part of the pre-production phase, there are continuing conversations with several builders. Construction will commence later this year with My Reno Rules premiering on 7 and 7 Plus in 2026. Last week, executives and stars went to Canberra with the begging bowl out, hoping to convince the Prime Minister and others to legislate in their favour. Let's go through the 5 key points as presented in a leaflet handed out at the event, and then I'll pass my verdict. Yes, Judge Rob is back, and it's not the size of the gavel that counts, just quietly. All right, point 1. Abolish the outdated commercial broadcasting tax. Broadcasters pay $50 million annually on top of significant Australian content investments and regulatory compliance costs. Now, Tim Burrows from Unmade and Mumbrella joined me last week on McKnight Tonight to talk about the event and these points. So here's what he had to say about point 1.
Even now, the free-to-air broadcasters are able to write somewhere between $3 and $4 billion a year in advertising. That's via what they're doing over the public airwaves. So, my question is, these are public airwaves. If these broadcasters didn't have access to them, other people potentially would. So there must
that spectrum is worth millions, if not billions. If television closed down tomorrow and the government sold it off, they would make so much money from that spectrum.
Absolutely. The telcos would jump in.
And I agree. While I have sympathy for the commercial hardship facing broadcasters, the fact is they occupy very valuable spectrum that allows them to broadcast into every home in Australia, albeit through an aerial that many people are choosing not to install these days. But they're still reaching a lot of people. Judge Rob verdict? No deal. All right, point 2. Close the digital rights loophole in the anti-siphoning rules to stop global streamers putting iconic sporting events exclusively behind a paywall. Now, this would stop global streamers from putting iconic sporting events exclusively behind a paywall. On this point, Tim and I have very different takes on what is and isn't allowed under the legislation. Look, it's my understanding that when streamers can gobble up the digital rights, those sports still have to be shown on free-to-air TV, but not their catch-up services like 7 Plus, 9 Now, etc. Tim believes there is a loophole here that would allow streamers to take the sports altogether. Now, are the free-to-air rights as valuable without the digital rights? Absolutely not. The federal government basically has stitched up broadcasters by not putting digital rights on the anti-siphoning list. At the very least, my take is that streamers like Netflix could buy digital rights and then on-sell the free-to-air rights, meaning that the 30% plus of Aussies without a TV aerial would be forced to pay for sport that has traditionally been free. Here's Tim's take.
Now, let's use the example of NRL. It costs you $1 billion a year. Now, if you're Netflix, you arguably can't monetize that, even with your advertising tier. So it only works with on-selling those rights to, or partnering on those rights with a TV broadcaster. So that was the theory.
Who have told me I've had an executive pretty senior tell me that without the digital rights, sporting rights are useless these days.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, totally agree. We saw that, for instance, one of the things Seven struggled with their previous AFL and cricket rights, for instance,
Correct.
was when they only had broadcast, they were not as valuable. Now they have both, and they've had to pay for that, but it makes it more valuable to the advertisers and the sponsors.
True, but that broadcaster wouldn't be able to show it, as I mentioned, on their digital catch-up services, i.e. 9Now, 7plus and 10play. Judge Rob verdict? Deal. The government must clear up confusion about the anti-siphoning list and include digital rights for free-to-air broadcasters. Let's go to point 3. Urgent support for regional television, which faces unique challenges requiring targeted policy interventions for transmission and infrastructure costs. Hard to disagree with this one.
There's less advertising available. The infrastructure costs are as big, and just because some of the quirks around how the licenses work can make that really impractical. So that one absolutely feels like a really reasonable ask if we do want to have this policy of Australia being a country where we work hard not to disadvantage those of us who don't live in the 5 capital states.
Judge Rob verdict? Deal. Point 4. Advertising restrictions must be balanced and impact on broadcasters mitigated. Look, we're not in the 80s anymore when banning tobacco ads didn't kill the bottom line of free-to-air broadcasters. In today's tough environment, banning gambling ads will have a major impact on the viability of the industry. And let's remember, gambling is legal. I just don't understand banning legal products from being advertised. Tim takes a pragmatic approach.
One of the kind of thoughts I have is there's a very big NRL deal to be done,
Yes.
TV rights deal in the coming months, and arguably NRL is probably looking for maybe $1 billion a year or something approaching that from the TV networks. Now, one of the calculations that all of the people bidding, and as well as the TV networks, it will probably be at least some of the streamers, is what they can bring in advertising against
Of course.
them. And that includes betting advertising. Now, I suspect that the most effective lobbying being done at the moment is actually not so much by the TV networks as by the sporting codes, because they will want the networks and the streamers bidding with some form of confidence that they're going to be able to bring things in from all categories.
Yeah, it's a good point. A gambling ad ban would have a major flow-on effect for sporting codes. Judge Rob's verdict? A deal for the broadcasters. Point 5. Introduce a news production offset to support investment in and delivery of this vital service for all Australians. This makes sense to me. The news is a service, and if we want Australian news to continue at current levels, we should treat it like we do Australian drama. The government helps fund Australian stories, so how is this any different? And Tim seems to agree.
One of the reasons I think it might just get a little bit of traction is because politically, you're not actually giving money to these networks.
Yeah.
They're just not having to pay as much. And politically, it also avoids the potential alternative, which is what the government has called the news bargaining incentive.
Tim and I ended up having a huge discussion about the news bargaining incentive and why I think it's a load of BS. It's best you watch that one rather than read a transcript. I'll leave a link in the description. But as far as money for news from the government in a tax incentive, deal from McKnight. Judge Rob says deal. So I think all bar one, the networks have done pretty well from Judge Rob. The latest Metro radio ratings were released Tuesday morning, so let me take you through the results of Survey 5 for 2025, starting with Melbourne. 3AW is back on top, baby, with a 13.5% share, ahead of Gold on 11.2%. In the last survey, 3AW had lost its number one crown, but it's back. In breakfast, Carl and Jackie O have seen signs of life, with a 6.1% share, up 0.5%. 3AW breakfast dominates on a massive 19% share, rising 2.4% compared to Survey 1. Christian O'Connell on Gold takes bragging rights on the FM dial with a 10.1% share, only just ahead of Nova on 10%. And it's already been announced Christian O'Connell is going national next year, and it looks like Kyle and Jackie O will do the same. It's been long promised, but I reckon 2026, it's on. To Sydney, no changes in the top 3 ranking of overall stations, with Smooth FM at number 1, followed by 2GB and KISS. There's not much in it though, with Smooth taking an 11.8 share compared to third place KISS on 11.1. That's 0.7 a difference. Usually AM takes out the top spot, but Kyle and Jackie O on KISS have leapt into number 1 in breakfast on 11.8%, shunting Ben Fordham on 2GB into second place with 11.4, only slightly ahead of Smooth FM on 11.3. Up in Brizzy, Triple M leads the pack on a 12.9% share, followed by B105 on 11.8. In breakfast, Triple M's Marto, Margot and Dan, he's the odd man out, they held on to the crown with 13.8%, followed by Nova on 13.1% and B105 on 12.7%. Over in Adelaide now, and the winning streak is over for Mix. They got a 13.2% share, with Triple M jumping into first place on 14. The Triple M breakfast team helped that result by taking out the top spot on a 14.8% share. Mix had to settle for 11.4. And finally to Perth. Nova has swapped bronze for gold this survey with a 13.7% share, pushing 96 FM into second with 13.1. Nova continues to dominate in breakfast, bringing in a massive 16.4% share, ahead of Triple M on 12.3. And while we're talking radio, some big claims in the Australian's media diary this week, with Steve Jackson reporting ARN is looking at axing presenters in favour of AI-generated hosts. And the evidence is compelling. ARN actually sent out a survey asking people what they thought of AI. This despite the company previously suggesting AI is not the future. We're trying to understand what's real and what's not, ARN CEO Kieran Davis previously told the Financial Review when it was discovered his company was using an AI-generated radio host. What we've learned is the power of the announcers we have. Apparently not powerful enough, though. Nunawading Studios, the longtime home of Neighbours and countless other Australian TV staples, has officially closed its doors after 6 decades of production. TV Tonight reports the Melbourne studio, which housed shows such as Prisoner, Young Talent Time, Rove Live and The Box, has been formally decommissioned, marking the end of a significant broadcasting era. The site is expected to be turned into a distribution centre as part of a new townhouse development. It's really sad news. Channel 9 has announced Weekend Today presenter Clint Stanaway is leaving the network at the end of this year to focus on his radio gig. Stanaway is part of Nova's Jason Lawrence show in Melbourne, which has been going great guns since they were flipped from KISS to make way for Kyle and Jackie O. Clint is one of TV's good guys and will be sorely missed after a 25-year career at 9. Good luck, Clint. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Media McKnight. I'll be back again next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time with more insights from the world of media. McKnight Tonight is back tomorrow at 9 with a different take on the news topics of the day. Just go to youtube.com/@McKnightTonight and hit that subscribe button. I'm Rob McKnight. I hope to see you again very soon. It's good night from McKnight. Cheers. Judge Rob is in the house.